any conversation around all-time greatest sandwiches has got to include the Vietnamese classic, a roast pork banh mi. Around the beginning of 2020, bushfires and a pandemic devastated many Australian regional towns, but they are recovering and rebuilding. I'm on the road to visit some of these areas as they spring back to life and collect some of Australia's best produce along the way. Join me on my road trip for good. My road trip continues through the northeast of Victoria to the town of Tallangatta, 360 kilometres from Melbourne. This is the high country, an absolutely stunning part of Australia with its national parks, rugged mountains and quaint rural communities. Mandy Crispin runs Tallangatta Bakery. More than just pies and bread, this place embodies the heart and soul of Tallangatta's community spirit.
Like, we moved away for a while and come back because Tallangatta is such an awesome town. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to live. That was really prevalent in the bushfires when everybody come out to help us. We opened our shop up to anybody who had been evacuated, just come in, have a coffee, have a chat. From that, we had people coming in here volunteering their time to help us make sandwiches. We stayed open for 2 weeks, non-stop, around the clock. Here at the bakery, we have about 23 people on staff. We make everything fresh daily, so we have bakers that come in at about 10 o'clock at night. Our bread's made from scratch daily. Pies are huge. We sell pies, so many pies. Pies and sausage rolls. There you go. Thanks. Our meat comes from the butcher shop next door. All of our produce is bought as local as we can buy it. So I guess we're an on-demand bakery, so if we're running out of something, we just make more of it, which makes us a little bit unique. So we never have a sold-out sticker, so we'll just continue to keep baking. My favourite thing about baking is you come into an empty shop, so there's nothing here. You've got 3 or 4 ingredients and you walk out with a shop that's full of produce, fresh food that people get a lot of enjoyment out of. You know, there's nothing better than a fresh roll or a fresh sandwich.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
See ya.
There are a million different variations on a banh mi, and in Australia we have an enormous Vietnamese population, mainly from the south of Vietnam. This is kind of an Australian version, but it is still faithful to the Vietnamese original. Before we get into the sandwich stuff, I'm going to start with my roast pork. I've got about 2 kilos of pork belly here. And this style of roast pork is really similar to your Cantonese style siu yup. And you find this kind of all through Vietnam. You want a very crispy skin and nice, juicy, flavorful meat. So this is how we prepare it. I use one of these. I don't even know what it's called, to be honest, but this is very popular for making Cantonese roast pork. If you don't have one of these, which you probably don't, just a small sharp knife is fine. And I want to prick hundreds, thousands of tiny little holes all through the skin of this. What that'll do is when it comes to roasting, all of those holes are going to be like little corners and they're going to catch the heat and burst up and give us that lovely crispy crackling. Then I'll flip it over and I just want to cut some lines through this pork belly here. This does 2 things. Firstly, it's going to let our marinade penetrate into the meat a little bit better. And secondly, it's going to stop the pork belly from curling up too much, which will give us a nice flat top, which will give us a nice crispy skin. So the ingredients for our rub, I guess, not really a marinade. Some garlic, I'll just finely chop that. Now I'm just going to add some of the garlic to the meat side of the pork belly. Garlic, 5-spice powder. Some white pepper. And just really rub that in, just to the meat side, not onto the skin. Put that into a tray. And then just onto the skin side, a really generous amount of salt. Now, a little bit of pork crackling theory here. We're salting the skin to dry it out a bit. Not too much, because the way you get good crackling is you need to soften the skin and then hit it with high heat so that the liquid, the water that's inside the skin, even though we've dried it out, there's a little bit of water left in there, bursts through, particularly where those little holes are, and causes a puff. That then gives you your crackling. So the first step is salting the skin. I'll put this in the fridge uncovered overnight. But luckily, I've got one I did yesterday. Now you can see what a night in the fridge has done. Nice and dry, that's gonna give us a really good crackling. I'm just gonna brush the salt off. You don't need to get all of it off. A little bit of salt on there is actually gonna help us with the crackling even more. And transfer all of this into a roasting tray. Now I want to make sure the skin softens first. I'm going to cook this at 180 degrees. Then after about 45 minutes or an hour, I'll turn the heat right up and it'll give us a puffy crackling. Now for the rest of the ingredients, I'm going to start by pickling this daikon. Now before we get into this, I want you to have a plan. And that sounds a little bit strange in terms of a sandwich, but there's so much in terms of the balance of taste and texture in something as simple as a banh mi. You have to make sure you're getting the right textures and tastes from the various ingredients you have. Think about how you're cutting these. So the classic Vietnamese pickle, the do cha, which is radish and carrot, is very finely shredded, but I want more texture than that. So I'm gonna leave the carrot raw and cut this daikon into quite large battens. Now there's method to the madness here. I've cut these about the same length as my bread rolls. So one piece of pickle, sweet, sour pickle, in there is going to be a really good texture for the sandwich. I need to rub that with some salt to draw out some moisture and also to season it. There's a lot of moisture that gets drawn out of the daikon through this process, but how do you know when you've massaged it enough? Well, take one piece, and if you can touch the ends together without it breaking, you're pretty much good to go. Now for the pickling. I think one of the most useful things to use is just a little press seal bag here. Open that up, drop in the daikon. Now, in terms of balancing the flavors, I'm gonna have some nice savoriness from the pork, from the banh mi dressing. I want this pickle to be really sweet and sour. So I'm gonna add quite a lot of sugar, a couple of tablespoons. Maybe even a bit more. And then equal parts of vinegar. And water. Try and squeeze some of the air out of the bag so it's really coated in the pickling liquid and seal it. And I'll throw that in the fridge for about an hour. Now the rest of the vegetables. Again, I want to make sure that I'm mindful of the texture of these. I'm going to cut the cucumber and spring onion about the same length as the rolls again. The carrots I'm going to treat a little bit differently. I'm going to finely shred those with one of these. This makes life so easy. Peel the carrot, give it a once over with one of these, and you'll get nice little juliennes of carrot. Now for the banh mi sauce, the seasoning that gets drizzled onto the sandwich. That's just some garlic, fish sauce, some soy sauce, and just a touch of sugar to balance it out. Last couple of ingredients. This is just a Vietnamese pork loaf. Your traditional banh mi quite often is made with Vietnamese cold cuts. We're using roast pork in this one, but I just really love this stuff, so I want to include that as well. It's just sort of a pressed meat product wrapped in a bit of banana leaf. I'll take a quick look at the pork too. That looks fantastic. You can even see that the crackling's starting to go. So I'll turn the heat right up with an overhead grill, and that should give us a really crispy pork in about 10 minutes. And crackling does not get better than that. Now for the bread. A banh mi is always best when that crusty loaf is still nice and fresh and warm. So I'm going to put these on a tray and stick them in the oven just for 10 minutes. Now for this pork belly. Honestly, that is the crackling that dreams are made of. I'll grab the bread rolls and we'll put everything together. Bit of tinned pate first, a nod to the French influence in Vietnam. Touch of mayonnaise. Pork slice. Our pork belly, carrot, the radish that we pickled earlier, spring onion and cucumber, some coriander, chili, and of course, our banh mi dressing. Roast pork banh mi.